Music, art, drama, historical presentations, all of which give depth and understanding to what the classics are to not only our own institution, but to civilization in the Western world. Built in the 1960s as a result of a contribution from Maria and Kostas Maliotis, the Maliotis Cultural Center was built with the mission of advancing Greek culture and language.
It is Kostas and Mary's Maliotis' home. Under this home, the whole Homogeneia is getting served with different kinds of activities and events.
3 years ago, Hellenic College Holy Cross was able to regain control of the operations of the facility. We then commenced a very intentional 3 to 5 year plan to renovate the facility that had fallen into significant disrepair.
The Maliotis Cultural Center is a beautiful 2-story building clad in all-white Pentelic marble, the same marble that was used on the Parthenon. The atrium is tall and spacious, yet welcoming. It is the perfect place to host an exhibit, a conference, or a lecture. With a seating capacity of 340, our theater can hold musical performances, Greek tragedies, conferences, seminars, and so much more.
We're here in front of the brand new LED wall, which was one of the many major capital improvements we've made to this facility this past year, both externally and internally.
We were then able to use the facility for our students in ways that it had not been used before. As a virtual student center, including its use as classrooms, a location for student events, a casual library, and actually even a cafeteria.
The library is one of my favorite places at the Cultural Center. It's so cozy and warm. It has a great atmosphere. It's just a great place to grab a book or a cup of coffee, study, hang out with friends. There's no place like it. Don't forget to stop by the Maliotis Cafeteria. It's like a little corner of Greece right here in Boston.
I'm really excited seeing the center creating affiliations with local universities like Harvard, BU, BC Fletcher. It's amazing that we have been able to create affiliations with Benaki Museum and Gennadios Library.
It's exciting for me to see so many people on a daily basis visit the facility, not just the students that are here on campus, as well as the faculty and staff. But every day there's an event, there's permanent exhibits here, there's ongoing activity, both as not only as a social area, but also important as a place of holding meetings, dances, all types of cultural events and activities.
It's such a blessing and joy coming on the center on a daily basis. I feel like there is a purpose and ethos. The center is full of life from 8 o'clock in the morning until 10 p.m. in the evening.
We have developed relationship with presenters both in New York and Athens to continue to grow and broaden our offerings.
We truly need the full support of our entire community. We've only scratched the surface of how great this place can be as a vibrant Hellenic cultural center for not only us here in the community, but for all over the world. And so we're looking forward to people coming here, visiting us, really experiencing what truly makes us Hellenes.
His Eminence, Archbishop Elpidophoros, refers to Maliotis Cultural Center as Κόμβος Ελληνισμού και Μελίσσης Ορθοδοξίας, the center of Hellenism and Orthodoxy.
Cultural centers are not only an important asset for us to preserve the past, but also to perpetuate the future.
I want to believe that Kostas and Mary Maliotis, they are proud how we continued their legacy.
Our vision is to be seen as not only the cultural center of campus, or of Boston, or of New England for that matter, but of the entire United States, to be the starting point of national tours. Our potential is endless.
Εντάξει, ωραία. Καλησπέρα σας. Σας καλωσορίζω στο Μαλιώτιο Πολιτιστικό Κέντρο. Δεν έχω ετοιμάσει κάποιο λόγο να σας πω, ούτε έχω κρατήσει σημειώσεις, γιατί αισθάνομαι ότι είναι μια ιδιαίτερα οικογενειακή εκδήλωση απόψε. Και βλέπω όπως ο κύριος Τριβουλίδης λέει, our extended family από το Benaki Museum να έχει έρθει στο Μαλιώτιο Πολιτιστικό Κέντρο. Απλώς θα ήθελα να πω ότι είναι μεγάλη τιμή η απόψινή βραδιά που τα αξιόλογα μέλη του Benaki Museum, του γνωστού Benaki Museum, ο κύριος Νικόλος Τριβουλίδης, ο κύριος Γεώργιος Μαγκίνης, η κυρία Ίγκε Νικολάου να είναι μαζί μας απόψε. Δεν θα πω πολλά λόγια για τη σχέση του Μαλιωτίου Πολιτιστικού Κέντρου με τον Benaki, ούτε για την απόψινή βραδιά. Απλώς θα ήθελα να καλωσορίσω όλους που ήρθατε σε μια δύσκολη μέρα. Ξέρουμε ότι είναι long weekend. Ευχαριστούμε πολύ τον σεβασμιότατο επίσκοπο Αντώνιο. Βλέπω και πολλούς καθηγητές από το Holy Cross και our chaplain Father Bartholomew. Θα ήθελα απλώς να ζητήσω στον κύριο Καντώνη να πάρει το λόγο. Και εδώ θα ήθελα να πω ότι όπως τα τρία μέλη του Benaki είναι η ψυχή του μουσείου. Ο κύριος Καντώνης είναι και θα παραμείνει η ψυχή του Μαλιωτίου, γιατί ο ρόλος του, όπως ξέρουμε, ήταν και συνεχίζει να είναι μια μεγάλη σφραγίδα σε αυτό που γίνεται. Εδώ θα πρέπει να πω ότι ο κύριος Καντώνης είναι αυτός ο οποίος ξεκίνησε τις επικοινωνίες, ξεκίνησε τις επισκέψεις, μας τα κανόνισε και τώρα εμείς συνεχίζουμε το έργο του. Μιλάω στα ελληνικά επειδή βλέπω ότι σήμερα το πιο
moment today because, as George Cantonis said before, a few years ago, 2, 3, I cannot even remember, and I can explain why that took so long. At the Benaki Museum, we have a credo. We never overpromise, but we never underdeliver. So we want to make sure that, you know, every step we're taking, we're a very conservative organization, and that makes us really very progressive. This is the essence of our reputation in Greece. And as Antonis Benakis was a man of the diaspora, he was a Greek of Alexandria, and I myself came to the States when I was 18, and I left when I was 33, and I grew up here, and I consider myself part of the, you know, in a very twisted sense, part of the diaspora. And Antonis Benakis dedicated his vision not to the Greek state, but to the Greek nation. Because at that time, the Greek nation involved a lot more things than, I mean, a lot more people than the confines of the Greek state. In some way, I think he had the Greek diaspora in mind as well. So working in an organization like that, who I am, also makes a lot of sense in the way that, you know, we do things. I'll give you a very specific example. With George Cantonis and with Chrysula, we've met repeatedly in my house. Today we came here earlier and felt like a home here. And this is, and the Benaki Museum, if you come to Athens, and you know, I'm pretty sure that many of you have, it's a house open to the Athenian community, but also to the Greeks, to the Greek nation, as you know, Antonis Benakis was saying. So I'm not the main act; I'm only the opening act. So I'm going to give the floor to George Manginis. My colleagues, as a director of development, my colleagues give me immense pleasure every time we have a seminal exhibition like the one that Dr. George Manginis is going to take us into a virtual tour of. The dedication they have, the faith they put, and also the state of scientific, historical research, and every single detail they're thinking about, and they put, you know, their hearts and their minds to. Again, I would like to ask Dr. Manginis to come and take us into this virtual tour, and also tell you that, you know, this program here today inaugurates the a program that we have, an international membership program. We will organize a lot more lectures, virtual tours, and when it comes to the Maliotis, as you know, it all started here. I can promise you, and Chrysula and the Maliotis Center will let you know about that. We have already scheduled photographic exhibitions, lectures. It's going to be a long-lasting relation, full of meaning that, you know, will further enrich our lives and pay tribute to our heritage. So thank you very much again, George. Thank you. If you think that, you know, we're always saying that, you know, we're the museum of the brief speeches, I think I overdid it this time, but I'm entitled to. Okay, so thank you very much again. Thank you. Thank you, George, and thank you, Chrysula.
Good evening. Thank you to all for being here tonight, and thank you to all those who spoke before me. And what I'm going to try to do tonight for you, and I've only done this once before, is to use a 360-degree photographic documentation of the Asia Minor Hellenism exhibition, which was presented at the Benaki Museum 2 years ago on the centenary of the Asia Minor Catastrophe. And I'm going to use it to take you around the exhibition, but also, in some ways, touch upon the issues that were at the core of the exhibition. Good? Oh. I'm afraid it's stuck on screen, so I see it moving, but you don't see it moving. So if we could fix that, I would be grateful. Thank you. Great, that's it. So, I don't know if you've ever used 360 degrees panoramas before. They're much easier to use than on your computer, than on the screen. This will be soon available to all. You will be able to navigate the exhibition, see it by yourselves. But we present this here for the first time, actually, in the States and in the world. We started from the United States as something we share with our audience tonight. Now, how many of you, and I guess there's a few Greeks in the audience tonight, how many of you have origins or connections with Asia Minor? Could I have a count of hands, please? So it's about 30% of the audience, which is a good percentage. In Greece, that percentage can rise up to 50%. We always did that as we started our guided tours of the exhibition. And Asia Minor is more than a geographical location. It's a cultural location as well. It's a part of history, and it's also an idea, something very, very close to the Greek soul. For most people, when they hear the name, they think of Smyrna and the Ionian coast, the Aegean, the central Aegean coast of what is today Turkey. However, Asia Minor comprised of 4 quite large areas, and distinct, with very distinct cultures and material culture, and also customs and ways of being. So the first one is where I have the mouse now, so the Ionian coast, places around, opposite the great eastern Aegean islands. The second one is here, at the heart of Anatolia, at the heart of present-day Turkey, Cappadocia, but also the southern coast of Cilicia, Kilikia. The third great area is the Pontus. It's in the northeast, on the Black Sea, borders on Armenia, a little bit on Georgia. It's closer to Persia than it is to Europe. And the fourth and last is the area around Constantinople, Istanbul, and the straits leading from the Black Sea onto the Aegean and eastern Thrace. So these 4 areas are 4 very distinct geographic areas. And this is what is Asia Minor. Now, a question that people asked us, and we're now progressing from the introductory room of the exhibition into the first gallery, so to say, is why would a museum like the Benaki invest considerable amount of time? It took us 4 years to organize this exhibition. And we managed to work beautifully with the most important research center on the history and culture of Asia Minor, the Center for Asia Minor Studies, Kedro Mikrasiatikon Spoudon. And that's unusual. Usually Greek research institutions and museums don't work together, but we worked wonderfully for 4 years. And so we did a major effort, and we fundraised for this exhibition. And we tried hard. And why was it so important to do an exhibition on the 100 years of the Asia Minor Catastrophe? The first one is that it's very relevant to Greek identity. Structures of identity are very important. We all talk about being Greeks or Hellenes, but what does this really mean? And how do we define it? This is not an art exhibition. This is a historical exhibition. It really touches on issues of belonging, of culture, and of national identity. So that was the first major goal. The second, of course, is the fact that what happened in Asia Minor between the year 1871, roughly, when the financial crisis in the Greek mainland pushed a lot of modern Greeks from the Kingdom of Greece to move east into the Ottoman Empire and settle where ancient Greek populations already existed, marry into these populations and create a new wave of Hellenism in Asia Minor. And 1923, when all the Greeks were uprooted, what happened in these roughly 50 years is a defining moment, is a defining sequence of events for what today's Greece is. So it's, we can't understand 21st century Greece without understanding Asia Minor. Finally, the third reason was that we had to address misconceptions, we had to play a corrective role, and also we had to bring together all the people that had things to say about Asia Minor. We realized early on that a lot of the young people, they would say, oh, είμαι Μικρασιάτης, I come from Asia Minor, but they wouldn't know what it was or what that meant. So, and they had all sorts of ideas in their mind, and the exhibition really wanted to take them by the hand and bring them together and try to answer questions or show them what we historians believe is the reality. Of course, that's, we know all, a construct anyway. The person who undertook this incredibly difficult task for 4 years was not me. It was an art historian and member of the Board of Trustees of the Benaki and the Center for Asia Minor Studies, Evita Arapoglou. Evita was the one who got the original inspiration for the exhibition, and she followed at every stage, every single detail of this undertaking. And the reason I keep on showing you these 5 pictures on the wall is because they show more than anything how much work went into this show. When a museum mounts an exhibition, it usually tries to be very economical and borrow things from as little outside sources as possible. A museum, and the Benaki in particular, has usually a very good collection in storage or on display and doesn't need to borrow too much to tell a story. But for the purposes of this exhibition, Evita chose very consciously not to use the rich collections of the Benaki and the Center for Asia Minor Studies if she could use another collection, if she could borrow from a museum, if she could go to a private collector, or even a family originating from Asia Minor. Very often we would say, but we have something like that, it's actually better quality. And she would say, no, I don't want something which is easy. I want these people to contribute to the exhibition to feel that this show is for them and bring them with us. So the end product of this was usually a museum, a big museum exhibition has 30 or 40 lenders. We get things from 30 or 40 different sources. This one had 190 lenders. And that, I mean, from holy metropolises, from major museums, archives, research institutions, private collections, to sports clubs. So what you're going to see took 4 years and a lot of effort to put together. And this was in order to make everybody feel that they were part of the effort. The exhibition begins with what we have been kind of looking at for a while, a video. And this was a construct. This is a video that means to bring you on board a ship, to make you imagine that you're boarding a ship that has crossed the Aegean from Piraeus and has arrived at Smyrna at about the year 1910. And what you're looking is at something that doesn't exist anymore, because Smyrna, the Smyrna of the early 20th century, has been burned down, as we all know, in September 1922. So we made a composite, a digital composite, from archival photographs, prints, maps, all sorts of sources, and colored it very vividly to give you the feeling that you're looking from aboard the ship onto this legendary gateway to the east, the gate of Asia that was Smyrna. So this is where the journey to Asia Minor begins. And you disembark and you enter a house, let's say a drawing room, of a bourgeois house, not just in Smyrna, but in any of the large urban centers of the Aegean coast. What you look at is portraits of people. All of them, you will notice, in European dress. They look very Western. Ladies and gentlemen with big whiskers and fancy jewelry and decorations. And I mean, just look at this lady over here with her amazing jewelry. By the way, she lost all that jewelry as she was escaping Smyrna, and only the ring on her figure here is the only thing that remains with the family. And actually, one of her great-granddaughters was wearing the ring at the opening of the exhibition. Now, these people were bourgeois. They were entrepreneurs, businessmen. They were doctors and pharmacists. They were traders, a lot of them. Greeks were very good at trade. And of course, they would use the crockery, the cutlery, the clothes of civilized people of their time. And also they would listen to music, European as well as Greek. But the exhibition didn't just want to show the glamorized reality of the Greeks in the cities. Instead, it also took us to the rural areas around Smyrna and Ivali and showed us the realities of the people toiling the land. Here we see a bit more traditional dress, but still with a European flair, and also the tools for agriculture and everyday life. A male dress, you will notice the waistcoat on the left, the black one, very traditional, very much like the one worn in this beautiful painting by Contorlu. And the one on the right, the gray one, a bit Europeanized, a bit westernized. So this is an area where traditions are mingled with modernity. Now, when you look at these, let's say, tableaux vivants, at this arrangement, you may think that we found them all together in a house and reconstructed them in front of this beautiful golden background at the museum. Every single object has been brought from a different part of Greece and has been arranged in front of you. So if I can count 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 towels here, each one comes from a different collection. A lot of the times, next to the labels that you see on the wall, there are texts like this, which cast a heavy shadow, because these are texts that are offset from the wall. It was a conscious choice in this exhibition to have 3 layers of information. One is the layer of the scholar, the labels, the wall texts, what we historians have to tell you about Asia Minor. The second layer was, of course, the object, the evidence of the things themselves. But the third layer was perhaps the most important, and it was the words of the people that had lived in these times. So, next to objects or to photographs from specific periods or places, there were passages, the words of people from back then. They were sourced from thousands of pages of testimonies, also from poetry, from literature, and from rarely seen archives. In total, we had some 200 of these short texts in the exhibition. Continuing into the Ionian coast, there was a very good section here on the role of the church. Now, in every area of Asia Minor covered in the exhibition, there was a section dedicated to everyday life, a section to education, dedicated to education, a section for the church and its role in keeping and bringing together the Greek community, just as it does, of course, in Boston, here at the Maliotis Center, and a section on sport, which we very often forget. So here there were icons, sculpture from a templar, from church screens, and liturgical vessels from churches in Ionia. And when it came to education, this is one of my favorite sections in the exhibition. We had photographs, but also school degrees and progress reports from various schools, among which the American College in Greece, which was founded in the latter part of the 19th century in Smyrna, not in Athens. And this photograph here, on the bottom right, shows 8 girls, hopefully smiling on the camera lens, ready to begin their life as they would imagine it in Smyrna in the year 1919. And we all know how their lives would change forever in just 3 years. Across the room, there is another wonderful section on sport. And here I would like to single out 2 photographs on the bottom row of a very handsome young man, a super athlete of his time. Karabatis was his name. Karabatis was good at every sport. He was very handsome, and you often see him in various stages of undress in his photographs. And in this one on the right, he's got about 24 medals pinned to his chest. We'll see him again in this exhibition will follow his road to refugeedom as the history unfolds. Leaving now the coast, leaving Ionia and Smyrna, we're going to progress into the second great area of Hellenism, and this is Cappadocia, the central part of Asia Minor. Here, the culture is distinctly different. Just looking at the costumes, you know that you are in a more traditional society. Heavy, woven fabrics, beautiful embroidery, gold, and scarves covering the hair of women in front of Argeos, the great mountain of Cappadocia. For Cappadocia, we chose to reconstruct one of the rock-cut churches that are so typical of this area. This is all, of course, like a theater set. It's not real, true stone. And in front of it, we exhibited a gold and silver church plate. And there is a fascinating story with regards to Cappadocia, and that has to do with a Greek population of the area which had stopped using the Greek language, and they had become Turkish-speaking. However, when they wrote Turkish, they didn't use the Arabic alphabet, they used the Greek alphabet. Now, this very interesting population, you may already have heard of them, were the Karamanlides. And Karamanlidikes icons or Karamanlidica books exist in several collections. I'm sure Boston has a few around its libraries. So there is here a patriarchal firman, edict, and 3 icons, 2 clad in silver and 1 painted in egg tempera. And their inscriptions, you look at them and you think they're Greek, and then you start reading and you realize they're not Greek, they're actually in Turkish. So it's a wonderful chapter of the life of the Greek communities of Asia Minor. The most important icon in the exhibition was that of St. George from Alaya. Alaya was in the south of Asia Minor, north of Cyprus, and it was quite near Syria. And we all know that St. George was a Syrian soldier, and his cult in the area was very strong. This icon had to be moved by the local communities in 1923 back to Greece. As part of the exchange of populations of the Treaty of Lausanne, they could keep it with them, but it was far too large to carry, and they could only take things that they could carry with them. So what they did is they cut it up in pieces, and the different pieces found themselves in different communities, in different churches. There was an initiative by the metropolitans of Nea Ionia a few years back. They gathered the pieces of the icon. They used very good conservators, and now the icon you can see in the metropolis of Nea Ionia, and we were blessed to have it in the exhibition on show. Now, the society of Cappadocia was distinctly different from this of the coast. And that we can see when we come to education. Instead of the more secular education of Ionia or even Pontus further east, in Cappadocia education was clerical. It was very much controlled by the church. And you see here, for example, in all the photographs from classrooms, the priests in robes are in the center of all the photographs. They are the teachers, they are the directors of the main educational institutions. By the way, in each one of these sections on the 4 different areas of Asia Minor, there were giant screens, and they projected hundreds and hundreds of photographs of places, buildings, and people. And one of the most touching things in the exhibition was that many of the visitors, and we had some 40,000 visitors to the exhibition, which by Greek standards is phenomenal, they've managed to find their great-grandparents, grandparents, and their houses in these exhibition, in these photographs of the exhibition. So that's why we made an effort to show as much material as we could, to have the people sort of being touched by this amazing material that we were able to gather. Now, the third area that the visitors of the exhibition visited was, of course, the Pontus, the northeast of Asia Minor. And here, when you check the costume that stands in front of the photograph looks quite traditional, looks almost Eastern. There is, it's got an Oriental feel to it. But if you look closer at the black and white photograph of the wedding behind it, you will notice that the men are dressed in Western clothes. However, the contact with the West, whatever that means, didn't happen with Italy, for example, or France, as was the case of Ionia. It happened through Tsarist Russia, Imperial Russia to the north. So, in the Pontus, amidst all the everyday objects that we exhibited, was a samovar for making tea in the traditional Russian way. The main landmark, of course, of Pontus is Panagia Soumela, the Virgin of Soumela, the great pilgrimage site, and that we reconstructed from an old postcard. And we stressed the very lavish and very beautiful ecclesiastical objects that can be sourced from that part of Asia Minor. The lavishness is not disconnected from the richness of the population. We often talk about how wealthy Smyrna was, but in reality, the richest Greeks in the Pontus were the Greeks of Pontus, because they had silver mines and because they traded with Russia, which at the time was incredibly wealthy. And here there is a unique document, and it's this very tattered, very, it has been through a lot. It has had a very adventurous life, piece of paper that you see here in the middle of the picture. And this is a document signed by some 50 crypto-Christiani, meaning hidden Christians. Now, we are taught at school that these Christians hid their Christianity for fear of retributions by the Ottoman Turks. The reasons were, I'm afraid, much more mundane. They did it for tax reasons. Non-Muslims in the Ottoman Empire were taxed an additional 10%. And rich people never like taxes. And so, officially, these Christians declared themselves as Muslims. And you will notice all these little black circles at the bottom of the document. They are their seals, and their names are Ibrahim, Mahmud, etc. However, in 1852, a sultan declared that all the citizens of the Ottoman Empire will have the same rights and obligations, and he said that there would be no difference between the different religions in the face of law, and they would all pay the same tax. So these hidden Christians came out, and this document, which 52 of them signed, tells us that in reality, although we've declared ourselves to be Muslim and we've signed in Muslim names, we are in reality Christian. And it dates from 1853. So it's a unique survival which doesn't belong to the Benaki, but we kept it for decades on behalf of the Pontic Greeks, and now it's been returned to their beautiful new museum in Nea Smyrni. Now, I often talk about the wealth of Pontic Greeks, and we had a very nice section here on the major banking families. And you can see here in these family photos the combination of a bit more traditional dress, and look how Western they look. And in Pontus, there are a lot of girls' schools and progressive girls' schools that are being founded in the late 19th and early 20th century, important for the emancipation of women at this stage. Now, the last part of Asia Minor to be covered in the exhibition was the area around Constantinople and Eastern Thrace. Although the Hellenism of Constantinople was not part of the exchange of populations and nominally remained untouched by the horrible historical realities of the 20s, we couldn't possibly omit it. The Patriarchate, the ecumenical, as it's called, Patriarchate of Constantinople, was always at the heart of Hellenism in Asia Minor. And the gentleman in the fez is Siniosoglu, one of the great benefactors of the Patriarchate. I've got a story here to share. It's a very touching story with American interest. Sorry, I pressed the wrong button. Here I am, back. And it has to do with the portrait of this mustachioed gentleman in front of us. One day, I got an email about a year before the exhibition opened by a lady in Arizona. And she said, I'm coming to Greece and I would like to bring and donate to the museum my great-grandfather's portrait. And one tends to be apprehensive at such emails because usually the portraits are very badly painted and very low quality. And this extremely elegant lady arrived, and she was carrying a suitcase, and out came this fantastic portrait by a very good French portrait painter. And she said, oh, that's my great-grandfather, it's Panagiotis Zographos. Now, Zographos was a Greek from Thessalia, from central Greece, and he was one of these Greeks that went to Asia Minor in the second half of the 19th century and became banker to the Sultan. So one of the richest people in the empire. And he donated the Zographion Gymnasion, one of the most important educational institutions in Asia Minor, which still exists. It's a boys' school. It's one of the 4 schools, Greek schools of Istanbul today. And it's the living legacy of his benefaction. So I was very proud to be able to tell the lady from Arizona that her donation would be exhibited just in a year, which is very unusual by museum standards. Now, again, some costume from Eastern Thrace, showing the mixture between the Western and the traditional, and just a brief stop to show you the most important product of the area of the Straits around the Hellespont. And this is Kütahya pottery. Now, Kütahya pottery follows, as you can see, the style of the Ottoman decorative tradition. It's very brightly painted and very sort of Islamic in taste. However, from the 19th century, a lot of the potters were Armenian or Greek. And the Greek potters very often inserted Greek subject matters. And we see here a dish completely Ottoman in decoration, and at the center it's got Athena, the goddess of wisdom, on its main panel. There are also a lot of Greek inscriptions on Kütahya wares, and during the presence of the Greek army in Asia Minor, a lot were made to commission. And this reference brings me now to the second part of the exhibition, which is the dark part. You will notice that the wall color here changes. We go from a golden yellow to a dark gray, because here history rather than memory takes over. In the early part of the 20th century, the new Turk, the Neo-Turkey movement takes over. And they accuse, quite rightly, the sultans of being corrupt and inept, and they demand again, and they get for the second time, a parliament. And in this parliament, the Greeks are represented. So at the bottom right, you see this black and white poster. These are all the Greek MPs, members of the Ottoman Parliament in the 1910s. And things look perhaps a bit brighter, as if the empire is going to modernize and is going to westernize itself more efficiently than it did in the 19th century. But World War I breaks out, and populations like the Armenians and the Greek are considered suspect for treason and espionage by the Ottomans. And we have the first persecutions of Greeks and the first refugees who move either to the Kingdom of Greece or to Russia. The Ministry of Health or Social Welfare, actually, as it was called then, sent a very young Greek public servant to Odessa, and with the task of finding out the condition of Greek refugees from the Ottoman Empire. And we have on the wall 2 letters, one handwritten and one typed, counting the numbers of refugees already in the 1910s. So we are way before the revolution, the catastrophe, the 1922. And if you notice the signature in the handwritten letter, it's got a very characteristic N at the beginning for the first name of the young civil servant. And this is, of course, the N in Nikos Kazantzakis, the greatest Greek author, who was then fairly unknown. And if you go to his tomb today in Crete, the N is his signature. So one of the great personalities of the 20th century in the exhibition. Of course, the other great personality of the 20th century in the exhibition is no less than Eleftherios Venizelos. At the end of World War I, the then Prime Minister of Greece is able to negotiate an incredible opening up of the Greek borders, which after the Balkan Wars, after 1912, and after the successful entrance of Greece in World War I, come to include, as we can see in this original map from the period, not just old Greece, the yellow part, but also the Greece of the Balkan Wars, the red part, and the Greece of the Treaty of Sèvres, signed in 1919, which is the green part. And the green part includes most of Eastern Thrace and the area around Smyrna. So finally, the grand idea of the Greeks in the 19th century, of a Greece which extends across 2 continents and 5 seas, was true. It happened. But this map tells a very different story from another map which sat just across the exhibition wall on the other side. And it's this one. This is a top secret military map exhibited for the first time in the exhibition. It was taken in 1919, so at the very beginning, as the Greeks settled in Asia Minor, the Greek army moved across the sea to claim the green area that we saw earlier. And it shows where the Turks are and their positions and their power in red, and where the Greeks are in blue. And it doesn't take a genius to see how many more the Turks are in terms of power within this area of Asia Minor. So the military reality did not match the enthusiasm of people. And so as the exhibition unfolded, and as you came to this section of the building, which actually is a narrow corridor sloping down, the architecture of the exhibition matched the mood as it unfolded between 1919 and 1922. So here we have the famous painting showing Averov, the great battleship of Greece in Istanbul, proudly flying the Greek flag in front of the Hagia Sophia. And further down, we have the official uniform of the captain of Leon, the first Greek ship. Here it is, a warship arriving at Smyrna. And the elegant ladies and gentlemen of Smyrna from the balcony of their club looking at the Greek ships arriving and the Greek army disembarking to take over the city. But this jubilant mood was not matched by what was happening in the front. And by 1922, things are not looking very good. However, many people hadn't realized what was happening. This is a very interesting section, doesn't look very impressive, but it is on the Ionian University, the Greek University of Smyrna, that was never to be. It was founded, but it was never built and didn't teach a single course ever. The dean of the university would be Konstantinos Karatheodori, the greatest Greek mathematician recalled from Germany at the time. Here he is elegantly attired. And next to him, the drawings for the university, which would have been in Byzantine style. And in the letters displayed below, he, in July 1922, as the front collapses, he complains that they haven't given him enough money to buy more scientific equipment for the university. Equipment like this. Actually, these are original pieces of chemistry glass that somehow survived the disaster of the city. Now, I don't think I have to explain to this audience what followed in late August and September 1922. There is a section here on Chrysostomos, the metropolitan of the city, who was lynched by the mob. And much more touching is this section. This display case, which houses, to the right, the keys which people took with them as they departed, as they left their houses. And not just their houses, because to the right we've got house keys, the smaller ones, but the two very large keys on the red panel are the keys of the hospital of St. Charalambos and the single one on light red velvet is the key of the church of Agia Fotini in Smyrna. And we were able to get all these. So some people locked the doors of their houses thinking that they will be back soon. Other people, as soon as they boarded the ships, knew that was the end, and they threw the keys in the sea. So the keys are probably the strongest symbol of what happened in September 22. The other very touching thing are these two gospel books, where at the last page of the gospel books is written, obviously by the hand of the priest, the date, Sunday so-and-so, September 22, last service. And it's obvious that they know that this church will not be officiated anymore. There will be no service again. And you remember how we entered the exhibition, looking across Smyrna in beautiful color, as it was in the 1910s. We exit the second part of the exhibition, going into the last one, which has a little bit more hope, through this very narrow passage, like a part of the ship, the front of a ship. And in black and white, we had amazing archival videos sourced from Pate and also from American archives, showing Smyrna being burned and also the caravans of Greeks moving out of Asia Minor through Eastern Thrace and onto Macedonia. The last section of the exhibition was about the resettlement of Greeks. And here the design was ingenious. Instead of having something more traditional, the set designers and Evita Arapoglou, the curator, decided on a refugee camp, tents. So you entered and you felt that you were going into an open-air refugee encampment. And the first thing you saw were the luggage, either well-structured, organized suitcases and trunks, or boi. Boi were bundles of clothes. And that was a bit funny because these are original 1920s, beautiful boi, preserved in families, but and they were nicely stretched and starched and ironed. But we said we can't display them like works of art. They are boi, they are something, that people carried with their whatever they could muster on boats. So we got permission by the families to display them bundled up, properly filled with material as they would have been used. And the rug underneath was a rug taken by a young lady in 1922 because she had 3 young children and she wouldn't want them to touch the cold surface of the ship deck at night as they were crossing the Aegean. So it was the only thing that she managed to rescue, a bit of warmth for her children. Now, in 22, a lot of Greeks from the coast of Asia Minor and also from Eastern Thrace fled. But what followed was even more tragic. After the Treaty of Lausanne of 1923, many more Greeks, about 800,000 Greeks from Cappadocia and Pontus, from the central and eastern areas of Asia Minor, had to be displaced. This was the exchange of populations. It wasn't as traumatic as the first stage, but it was just as difficult. And this section shows things brought back to Greece, brought to Greece by these populations. Their icons, their iconostases, but also brass bowls like these, with earth, with dirt, from the courtyards of their homes and from the courtyards of their churches. One of them, you can hardly see it just here, has a few dry olive leaves in it. And they have been preserved for 100 years in private collections and also museums. And this was the bit more human aspect of the exchange of population. There was also a more political, a more official aspect. And this was the most the favorite part of the exhibition for diplomats and consuls. In this exhibition, every time I went, I would find at least an ambassador among the audience. And this tells the effort to give 1.2 million people with hardly any papers Greek passports and the right to vote. You can imagine, of course, the political aspect of changing the demographics of the voting population so radically within a few years. Talking about voting manipulation today. And also the incredible work done. And we often complain about the Greek state, but the incredible work done in the 20s by the Greek state to give these people an official being, you know, an identity, a piece of paper that told who you were. Now, the resettlement was a very difficult part, and a lot of neighborhoods who, if you've visited Greece, I'm sure you have seen, like Trapezona or Kokkinia or Vironas were created at the time. These are Athenian neighborhoods, but also Stavroupoli and in Thessaloniki and neighborhoods around Volos. This massive, massive effort for rebuilding and building anew houses to house these 1.2 million people. And beyond them, two very, very interesting chapters in the history of resettlement. One has to do with creativity, but also the role of women. More than half the refugee population was, of course, women. Women who traditionally did not work outside the home at the time, but they couldn't afford not to in their new reality in Greece. So what they did is they took up creative work, weaving carpets, and that's the biggest thing we had in the exhibition, a carpet loom from Nea Ionia, and these are some of the carpets they would weave. But also painting ceramics, like the Kütahya ceramics that we saw. Most of these, actually, not back in Turkey, but here in Greece, were painted by ladies, by women, who became professionals for the first time in history. And of course, they here display a case of lovely embroideries. The second section, which was one of my favorite, was about sport. Now, sport clubs were instrumental in bringing together the refugees, in creating a sense of community among these uprooted people. And we all know the stories of the great clubs like Panionios and AEK. However, here I would like us to meet again our friend Karabatis. You remember the handsome athlete that we saw in Smyrna? Here he is. And as you can see, he's posing in front of the Parthenon. Again, in state of address. And this is a photograph by Nellis, the great Smyrna female photographer whose archive we have at the Benaki Museum. Karabatis disappeared during the destruction of Smyrna, the burning of Smyrna, and he resurfaced in Cyprus a few months later and managed to arrive in Greece, where he became another sports star again and a model. And so he represents perhaps one of the most positive stories of a refugee who made it to his new home. Now, no exhibition in Asia Minor would be complete without a reference to the two people to whom we owe so much. And these are Octavius, Octave, and Melpo Merlier. Now, most people don't know these names, but they founded the Center for Asia Minor Studies. He was French, she was Greek, but not from Asia Minor. But they were so taken by the plight of the refugees, and they decided that what they could offer was to safeguard the memories, not the memories of the authors and the artists and the poets who could do it themselves, but the memories of the people who could not, the memories of the people who had to work hard to survive and could not take the time to write and reminisce. This is a reconstruction of their office. And here we have a panel that shows how these people worked. They had volunteers that went out to refugee settlements all over Greece. They photographed the people, and they did interviews with them, and they recorded everything: stories, customs, words, specific ways of doing things that were unusual in their villages and in their places of origin. Over 300,000 pages of stories have been preserved thanks to the Merlier couple. And this is the living memory of Asia Minor, more than anything. Approaching the end, the penultimate section of the exhibition is, of course, about music. Music which germinated with beautiful references from Asia Minor musicians. We had also a collection of records here, not just their instruments, but records, and you could scan QR codes and listen on your phone and take with you back home their songs. However, no exhibition like this is complete without a reference to the present. Because in the end of the day, why do we do a historical exhibition if not for the present? It's not just to commemorate or celebrate or bemoan the past, but really is to give meaning to what we experience today. So the curator of the exhibition, Evita Arapoglou, took a very bold decision, and she found about a dozen, 20 or 30 something young people who originated from Asia Minor families. And we had them interviewed in a section called "Η δική μου Μικρασία," my own Asia Minor. Each one talked or showed something that came from Asia Minor through their grandparents, great-grandparents, something that in their mind represented their own Asia Minor. An icon, a piece of crockery, you see, a rug here, a story, you see, an embroidery, a story, the icon here, and one of the girls sang a song, because that, for her, this song, which her grandmother would sing to her, that was her Asia Minor. And that was, of course, the most wonderful and touching goodbye to the exhibition, which is now preserved only in this 360-degree panorama that we saw, and of course its glorious catalogue, which you can find at the Benaki Museum and order online if you cannot go to Greece. The exhibition was the result of work, not just of its curator, Evita Arapoglou, or its designers, Natalia Boura and Pavlos Thanopoulos, but also of a group, and you can see the names of contributors here, of over 200 people, from scholars and academicians and university professors from Greece, the UK, Turkey, and USA, but all the way to painters for the walls and carpet layers. And this exhibition belongs to them as much as to all of you who have very kindly given us your time tonight here in Boston. Thank you. Now, I've kept you long enough. If you have any questions on the exhibition, we're having a small reception outside, and I will be happy to answer your questions privately.